Other news today, Chris Rock clapped back at Will Smith over that headline-making Oscars slap.
In Hollywood, reputation is everything, and sometimes it only takes one moment to watch it unravel. From awkward interviews to public jabs and onstage humiliation, what does it look like when one of the industry's biggest stars becomes the target instead of the favorite? And which celebrities didn't hold back even when the cameras were rolling? Join us as we go over the moments when Will Smith got destroyed by disrespectful celebrities right in front of the world. Will's oldest rival. When Janet Hubert was cast as Vivian Banks, also known as Aunt Vivian, on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, she was a Juilliard-trained stage actress with Shakespeare credits and a decade of professional work behind her. Meanwhile, Will Smith was a 21-year-old rapper whose biggest claim to fame at the time was a music video. Still, Janet was ready to act opposite this teenager to deliver an excellent job. Instead, what she found was a production team entirely focused on its star. No matter how much she complained about how scripts had reduced her character, the team always chose Will's comfort over hers. Eventually, right in between seasons, Janet was replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid. It happened so fast, and the audience never understood what had happened, in real life or even in the storyline. When Will Smith finally spoke about the situation in a 1993 interview, he implied Janet was jealous and hated how fast he had become famous. He even quoted her saying, "I've been in the business for 10 years, and this snotty-nosed punk comes along and gets a show." That interview nearly destroyed Janet Hubert's public character, and for the next 2 decades she continued to fight it. In 2011, she told TMZ that fans hoping for a Fresh Prince reunion should abandon the idea. "There will never be a reunion, as I will never do anything with Will Smith," she said. She called him an egomaniac who had refused to grow up and insisted that she would not appear on any project with him unless he apologized. At some point in 2013, Janet said in an interview that Will had started a smear campaign to justify her dismissal from the show, and she even accused Will of telling jokes about her right before tapings, which left her feeling very uncomfortable. For the next 9 years, that was the state of their relationship. Then, in 2020, Will sat across from Janet on Red Table Talk. So many years had passed between them and the audiences who knew their story, and they wondered if it was finally time for apologies. It was indeed time. Will started by apologizing for misjudging her, and Janet, without wasting time, accepted the overdue apology. She broke down in tears, finally vindicated, and the industry that had spent 3 decades believing the more powerful party realized she had been saying the truth the entire time. The apology was good for Janet's image, but it caused some backlash for Will. Die-hard fans accepted he was young and immature in the past, and that his apology was a sign of maturity. But critics began to wonder how valid everything else Will had once done or said was. Slowly and slowly, public trust in him was beginning to corrode. Will Smith told improper jokes about Janet Hubert, but what happens when the joke's on him, or in this case, on his wife? The infamous Oscar slap. On March 27, 2022, Chris Rock stood on the Dolby Theatre stage to present the award for Best Documentary Feature when he made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. She had alopecia, which he may or may not have known, but from the podium he could clearly see her shaved head. He said he could not wait for G.I. Jane 2, a reference to the film in which Demi Moore shaved her head and played a soldier. It was meant to be a funny jab, the usual kind of jokes on Oscar nights. But before the laughter in the room had ended, Will Smith was walking towards the stage. He climbed up the stairs, and in a room full of people and cameras watching him, Will struck Chris Rock across his face. Everyone in that room and everyone watching at home heard it loud and clear. As if he had done nothing, he returned to his seat and shouted at a shocked Chris to keep his wife's name out of his mouth. As a professional, Chris immediately tried to recover. He added a bit of humor and completed his presentation. After presenting, many expected some altercations after the event, but Chris didn't retaliate. Even when the Los Angeles Police Department offered him the opportunity to file a police report, he refused. Will won Best Actor approximately 40 minutes later. He wept during his acceptance speech, invoked Richard Williams and Denzel Washington, and apologized to the Academy and his fellow nominees. But it wasn't until the next day that he issued Chris a written apology. When Chris didn't respond to that, Will Smith took it a notch further and released a nearly 6-minute video statement weeks later, over-explaining himself. Yet Chris did not reply, except in his 2023 Netflix special Selective Outrage, where he said he was still processing the event and that anyone who used the word hate to describe his feelings was misreading him. The Academy banned Will from all its events for 10 years, and he also resigned his membership. But in January 2026, viral rumors claimed the ban had been quietly lifted, and Will would return to the Oscars for an on-stage reconciliation with Rock. The Academy has not confirmed this, and for now, the rift between the two men remains the same ever since that night. Some might argue that Chris Rock was indeed disrespectful, but did he really deserve a slap, especially when someone else had said worse just 2 weeks prior? Why Rebel Wilson never got a slap? The 2022 BAFTA Awards were held just 2 weeks before the Oscars, and Rebel Wilson stood on the podium as host. With an irreverent tone, she worked through her set, offering congratulations and making the kind of jokes that awards show hosts make when they are trying to prove they are not intimidated by the people in the room. Then she arrived at Will Smith. She smiled and dropped the bombshell statement. She said that Will's best performance of the year was being okay with all his wife's boyfriends. It was rude, and the crowd groaned in response, to which Rebel said, "Come on, he never showed up." But if Will was not in attendance, why did Rebel make a joke about his marriage? It made no sense. Of course, the joke went viral as people started to wonder if there was indeed infidelity in his marriage, or maybe he was just pretending to be fine with their open relationship. However, Will didn't waste time shooting down the comments. He insisted that he and his wife had talked about everything and had never surprised each other. For years, Will Smith has been applauded for having an open marriage, but many people still criticize him for it. Some call him weak or a simp, and one would expect the topic to be an extremely touchy one for him. But still, he remained calm, only to slap Chris a few weeks later over hair. So was it about respect? Or was it about how he wanted people to see? However, the truth about Will's open marriage didn't come out without drama. What happens when the most likable man in Hollywood gets locked out of his own marriage? Jada's scandalous entanglement. On June 30th, 2020, August Alsina, the New Orleans singer with the light voice and the scars from a coma he woke from in 2015, was on The Breakfast Club promoting his third album. But in 48 hours, nobody remembered the album's name or anything except what came out of his mouth next. He said casually, like he had no idea what his words were capable of, "I sat with Will, and he had given me his blessings." The room stopped. There had been several rumors about August and Will's wife, Jada. How was it possible that the man who has been America's most likable actor since 1990 gave his blessing for a 27-year-old R&B singer to be in a relationship with his wife? But August wasn't done yet. He went on to say that he had totally given himself to their relationship for years of my life. Within hours, Jada's reps fired back. They stated that the claim was an absolute lie, but August doesn't take back his words. Instead, he let the interview breathe, and soon the world started asking a question that, until this moment, nobody ever thought to ask about Will Smith. Is this man on the outside of his own marriage? For the next 12 days, the Smiths face public ridicule, until July 10th, when Jada drags Will to the red table, not to deny the relationship, to confirm it. She said, "We were over, and from there, as time went on, I got into a different kind of entanglement with August." Entanglement. The word detonated across the internet. It became a meme and a permanent scar on Will Smith's public face. But worse is what Jada says next. She didn't have permission because nobody needs permission. Even though Will was sitting right next to her, he didn't say a word. Instead, he nodded, and suddenly, the man who spent 30 years projecting unassailable confidence looked like he was attending his own wake. August, watching from wherever he's hiding, didn't take the correction lying down. He tweeted, "If you have something to say it with your chest, kids." On Lil Wayne's Young Money Radio, he insisted his account is the exact truth. 50 Cent, who has spent his career turning other men's humiliation into content, slides into Will's DMs and posts the screenshot. He captions the exchange where Will reportedly went off on him, and then he drops a meme. Despite all these, Will Smith said nothing. But now, August Alsina is living the aftermath in real time. He told People magazine in August 2020 that he broke his silence because he became the legal guardian of his 3 nieces after his brother was murdered and his mother died of cancer. He needed to control his narrative, but the narrative controls him now. He is no longer a singer. He is the man who admitted on tape that he was in a relationship with Will Smith's wife, and the whole world believed him. 4 years later, August is still explaining himself. In September 2024, he told an interviewer he never intended to destroy the Smiths. He had done it for his own reputation to save the business relationships, but it was starting to affect. But whether he intended to or not, his words had permanently damaged the couple's image. And if their image was slipping publicly, how were other powerful men responding behind the scenes? Hollywood's most shocking rivalry. The rivalry between Will Smith and Tom Cruise was never really a feud. They did not exchange insults through publicists, compete for the same roles, or date the same women. Instead, they competed against each other to see who was dominating the industry. A contest measured in opening weekend grosses, international box office percentages, and the number of countries in which their faces were recognized by more than 90% of the population. Will admitted this openly in interviews throughout the 90s and 2000s, describing how he would study Cruise's promotional schedules the way a general studies enemy troop movements. He noted how many talk shows Tom Cruise appeared on before a release, how many hands he shook at premieres, and how many countries he visited during the global press junket. Will vowed to do more and outwork the hardest worker in the room, and the hardest worker in the room was always Tom Cruise. In Mark Manson's book, Boom, Will admitted he began monitoring all of Tom's global promotional activities with the explicit intention of outdoing Tom's time in every country. For years, this was framed as admiration, the tribute that lesser ambition pays to greater, and Cruise responded with professional courtesy, appearing alongside Will at industry events, smiling for photographs, exchanging the pleasantries of men who understand each other's function. Then the slap happened, and the Academy banned Will from attending the Oscars for 10 years. That meant Will could no longer participate. No matter how excellent any of his new works is, he could no longer compete with Tom on that level. And when Cruise returned his 3 Golden Globes in protest of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association's diversity failures and stood on a red carpet in front of a bank of cameras, he answered no questions about Will Smith. He did not condemn Will publicly. He simply stopped being seen near him. And in Hollywood, distance can be louder than condemnation. But while some created space quietly, others began speaking loudly. The revelation that questioned Will's sexuality. The man who played Eddie Thomas in 100 episodes of That's So Raven sat close to a Twitch camera on December 1st, 2024, leaned in until his face filled the frame, and began to shout. His name is Orlando Brown, and he was once a child actor on the Disney Channel, beloved by a generation who watched him trade jokes with Raven Simonet and stumble through the mild comedies of adolescence. On this night, appearing on Deshae Frost's Frostathon livestream, he was unrecognizable from that boy. He was there to accuse Nick Cannon of having performed oral to tie that alleged act to the dissolution of Cannon's marriage to Mariah Carey, and to claim that Cannon had participated in a threesome at the home of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. This was not the first time Orlando had made such claims. In January 2020, he recorded a selfie video alleging that he let Cannon perform oral sex on him, adding that he liked it and found it okay. That video, disseminated by The Shade Room, accumulated millions of views. When Cannon responded, he called Orlando brilliant and beyond talented, but suggested the claims were either a cry for help or the product of mental illness and substance abuse. This definitely ain't the way to audition for Wild 'N Out, Cannon wrote. By April 2022, Orlando told the No Jumper podcast that the feud was squashed. He said, "I mean, out of respect for Nick, bro, I'm gonna just leave that alone." But he did not leave it alone. The December 2024 live stream resurrected every allegation and added new ones. Orlando accused Cannon of having participated in a threesome at Will Smith's residence, a claim for which he provided no names, dates, or corroboration. He then moved to Kevin Hart. He accused Cannon of running around here with Kevin Hart and demanded to know why the two men sent each other animals and erected billboards bearing each other's faces. This referred to a 2021 incident in which Cannon gifted Hart a pair of llamas for his birthday. Hart retaliated by purchasing billboards advertising his best friend, Nick Cannon, as a resource for fatherhood advice. Orlando believed this exchange meant they were engaging in same-gender lovemaking, and he made sure to express that several times on the channel with slurs that could get Deshay's Twitch channel banned. Deshay was visibly aware, and all he could do was silently beg Orlando to stop. However, Orlando's words can't exactly be trusted. Back in 2018, he appeared on Dr. Phil in 2018 and reportedly accepted treatment for addiction and mental health issues. In February 2024, Orlando claimed on The Breakfast Club to have made love with Diddy, Usher, Busta Rhymes, Cat Williams, Terrence Howard, and Bow Wow, a list so long and unspecific that it functioned less as an accusation than as a performance. Even his mother has publicly stated that there is nothing wrong with Orlando other than a desire for attention by any means necessary. And Raven Simonet, his That's So Raven co-star, described him in November 2025 as one of the funniest people she had ever worked with, but acknowledged he was an unhinged version of Cat Williams. The threesome allegation involving Will Smith's home remains vague, and none of the parties involved had come forward to say anything. It was also during that period that Orlando claimed that Michael Jackson and Will Smith had taken advantage of him, that his real name is Trey Will, and that he is actually Blanket Jackson, abandoned and assaulted. That video, difficult to parse and painful to watch, was viewed by millions and verified nothing except that Orlando Brown was a man in profound distress. Sure, Orlando's claims could be false, but what happens when something similar is said about Will, and this time it goes to court? The violinist's lawsuit. Brian had spent 2018 on America's Got Talent, where he received Heidi Klum's Golden Buzzer and finished third. His story as the violinist who refused to let paralysis end his career made him an ideal opener for Will's based on a true story tour, the actor's first musical outing since 2005. Brian was hired in December 2024, but by March 2025, he was filing a police report, and by December, his lawsuit accused Will of something even darker. According to a lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court in December 2025, Brian auditioned for Will at the Actors Home in November 2024. During the audition, they had spent time alone, and soon enough, they grew closer. Brian even claims Will told him that they had a special connection he didn't have with anyone else. But on a tour stop in Las Vegas in March 2025, when Brian returned to his employer-provided hotel room after sound check, he discovered that someone had entered in his absence. Inside, he found a handwritten note addressed to Brian. It read, "I'll be back no later than 5:30, just us." The letter was signed with a drawn heart and the name Stone F. Also present in the room were a backpack, a beer bottle, wipes, and a bottle of HIV medication belonging to someone he did not know. Naturally, he was terrified. This wasn't just stalking, but an invasion of his privacy. He reported everything to hotel security and tour management, but shockingly, he received a termination letter just days later. According to the production company, the band was moving in a different direction, and Brian soon learns that someone else had been hired to replace him. The lawsuit accused Will of grooming and priming Brian for further sexual exploitation and alleged a pattern of predatory behavior. It sought damages for emotional distress, financial loss, and reputational harm. Alan Grodsky, Will's attorney, stated that the allegations concerning his client are false, baseless, and reckless. He insisted that they are categorically denied and that he would use all legal means available to address these claims. As of 2026, the case remains active. But then came another allegation, this time from someone who had once been inside the house. The man inside the house. Bilal Salam was a friend and a man who had worked in the inner orbit of Will and Jada Pinkett Smith for years. In December 2025, he filed a $3 million lawsuit against Jada Pinkett Smith, alleging she had threatened him with violence over disclosures about her personal life and engaged in a harassment campaign against him after he refused to help manage the public crisis stemming from the Oscar slap. But Salam did not limit his disclosures to the lawsuit. He sat for an interview with Tasha K., a blogger known for explosive celebrity gossip, and there he described something else entirely. He had opened the door to Duane Martin's dressing room and walked in on Martin having anal sex with Will Smith. He described the positioning, the couch, the act itself in graphic terms that ricocheted across social media within hours. He said Will was bent over the couch while Martin was standing. He said it was murder in there. Will's representative issued an immediate denial, calling the allegation unsubstantiated, and the statement was published by TMZ and aggregated across entertainment news outlets. Duane Martin did not issue a statement. He neither denied nor confirmed the allegation. He did not speak at all. He had been Will's friend for more than 2 decades, a former professional basketball player turned actor, who appeared in an episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and remained close to Will through marriages, children, and career transformations. They were photographed together at premieres, at parties, and on vacation. They invested in businesses together. They shared history, and now they share only silence. The allegation was made by a man suing Will's wife, who had every incentive to cause maximum damage. It was conducted without witnesses or evidence that would satisfy a court of law, but it was made under circumstances that made it hard to ignore. Salam had worked inside the house and had seen the rooms that visitors never enter. He was either telling the truth or he was constructing an elaborate lie. The public has no way of knowing which. What the public has instead is the aftermath. Duane Martin has not been photographed with Will Smith since the interview surfaced. He has not appeared at any event that Will has hosted. He has not spoken his former friend's name in public. The friendship that spanned decades has dissolved into the silence of men who once knew each other's bodies and now know only each other's lawyers. And while legal battles unfolded behind closed doors, another kind of embarrassment unfolded in plain sight. Will's ghost audience. In 2025, Will posted a video from his European tour, a compilation of crowds reaching toward him, their faces alight with adoration. But something was wrong with the videos. The faces were not faces, and the hands had too many fingers. And that was when it hit the public. They were generated by artificial intelligence. A man who had once commanded $40 million per picture was now caught faking his own audience. It was not just weird that he had generated such a video, but also that he had posted it as if people would never notice. Fans were pissed. Some called him pathetic, and some simply advised him to enjoy his retirement. After all, he is 56 years old, worth more than $500 million, separated from his wife, estranged from his former friends, accused of harassment, sued by former employees, and playing the Scarborough Open Air Theatre in North Yorkshire on a bill that also features Shed 7 and the former lead singer of UB40. Will said recently that he is learning to see his life through the Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold lacquer, making the cracks beautiful. He invented a word for what he is experiencing, and he calls it brutiful. But the crowd in Scarborough did not care about any of this. They paid their money, sang along, and watched a man who was once the king of the world perform songs they remembered from their childhoods. But when he posted the video of that night, he did not post it. Instead, he posted ghosts. Do you think any of these rifts could have ended differently if it were anyone else? Can Will Smith ever fix the image he has spent decades building? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.